So, I reinstalled the Division 2 after being away for almost 2 years, mainly because they announced a new DLC. I wasn't expecting much, just a bit of nostalgia, maybe a clean up some old missions, but something weird happened. I actually got hooked again. This game has always had a weird place in the looter shooter world and a weird place in my heart. I loved the Division 2 and I would play it religiously until there was a certain update that they released a while ago that the game would just crash on me. I could no longer play the game, so I just stepped away. And I was sad, but I moved on. But now I'm back, and I gotta say, I'm having a blast yet again. Some people swear it's one of the best co-op shooters out there. Others think it's bloated, grindy, too tied up in systems that really don't go anywhere. But I gotta say, I honestly disagree. It still is, in my opinion, one of the best Ubisoft games ever made. This game has been out for 6 years now, and I figured after all that time, this game would be half abandoned or just too far gone to enjoy. But it turns out, the Division 2 not only is still active, but is still receiving updates and DLC. A DLC that I'm actually probably going to buy. And to be honest, that surprised me, because in 2025, I didn't think that I'd ever come back to the Division 2, but here I am. Not only coming back to the game, but enjoying it and willing to drop some money on it. Let's talk about it. In my experience, a lot of these live service games don't age well. You come back and it's a ghost town, or worse, the game's barely recognizable. It's changed so much that you don't even know what it is anymore. It's not the game that you love. But the Division 2, it feels like the same game that I left. It feels like the same game that I remember, just sharper, cleaner, and somehow still alive. During the footage you're about to see, I get a group of 4 in a story mission or an invaded mission, and yeah, the group might all converge towards the end of the mission, but my point is the people were there and they joined, and this is just a small example of how active this game still is. I can't tell you how many times I get backup requests while just running around doing my own thing, and most of the time I do answer them because I do like helping other players. The Division 2 is very much still alive, still being supported, and still worth your time playing. Even in 2025, which is a very rare thing nowadays because the game is so old. I played this a lot back at launch. I spent like the first few years of this game's life playing the hell out of it. I got into it. I got into the loop, the end game. I ran missions with friends. I did raids. I loved this game. Then my crashing issue happened and a lot of other things happened and I left. I drifted off and the content kind of slowed after a certain point and there was nothing really to pull me back in. So I just went off and started playing other games, and I didn't think too much about the Division 2. I actually thought I was done with it. I didn't think that I'd come back and play it, but I kind of always left it installed on my PC because I was kind of hoping to come back and play. But when I came back now, I figured it would just be, just poking around, maybe an hour or two, feeling that old feeling that the game used to give me when I played, just coming in and doing a few things. I didn't expect to invest time in it. But not only that, I didn't expect the game to be better than it was when I left. But it definitely is. Not only that, I didn't expect this to still be receiving so much support and love from the developers so long after launch. Especially because most of these live service games are just throwaways. They support them for a year or two or a few months after launch, and then they just move on to the next project. I wholeheartedly thought that there'd be a Division 3 by now. And there may be in the next few years, but I am so appreciative that they continue to work on and flesh out the formula for the Division 2. And if they do make a Division 3 and they use this as a base, that game is going to be off the charts. Because the first thing I noticed when I came back to the game was how good it still feels to play. The cover-based shooting, the weapons, the way they kick, the way they sound, all of it still feels amazing. But what's most impressive is the enemy AI. I have not seen any shooter do enemy AI as good as a Division 2 does. I don't know what it is, but these are some of the best enemies I've ever fought in any video game. In my honest opinion, the Division 2 hasn't aged one bit. It's still tight, it's still tactical, you can run and gun, you can use cover, you can basically play your style of game and you can modify your builds to play the way you want to play, and most of them, if not all of them, feel viable depending on what you're looking for. However, with certain builds, you're not going to be able to run and gun or rush the enemy. You're going to have to think, reposition, use your skills at the right time. You're going to have to apply strategy to the game to overcome the more difficult challenges. And then there's Washington, D.C., which honestly, it's an amazing setting. It's not quite The Division's New York City, but Washington, D.C. is a really, really good city to play in. And even the DLC, when you return to New York in this game, it doesn't quite feel like the first game's New York City felt. In The Division, New York City felt so desperate, so in need of a hero. When you return in this game, it kind of just feels like the city kind of is in like that quiet before the storm kind of phase. Like no one really feels desperate. It doesn't feel like you're in a dire situation, and you're mainly in New York to stop Aaron Keener. And I would highly recommend you buy the Warlords of New York DLC. I think that's what it's called. Don't crucify me if it's not. However, I digress. Basically, what I'm trying to say is this Washington, D.C. is very well built, and no one, in my opinion, no one builds maps quite like Massive and The Division 2. Like, there is something special about fighting in the American History Museum or fighting in the Pentagon. These settings are absolutely amazing, and they are so cool looking. My only complaint is there's a lot of unused space that could really go to good use, maybe putting some kind of collectibles or something, but overall, the detail and the layout of these maps are phenomenal, and I have never ever played a shooter where I have felt immersed in the setting as much as I do in The Division 2. And I'm not saying other shooters don't do world building well, because they do, but in this game, it's just something special about the world building. Moving on, they've made a lot of changes to the gear over the years, and I honestly wasn't sure if a build that I had 2-3 years ago would still be viable. But not only is it viable, it still hits hard. But that being said, all of the changes they've made to the gear, I think have been for the better. I have no complaints. When I left, it felt bloated. Too many stat rolls, too much junk, too much scrapping things or selling things. It just felt like you collected so much crap for too little payoff. But now it feels more focused and easier to build the build that you want to build. Wow, I said build a lot in that sentence. You got targeted loot zones, you can lock in stats, recalibrate your gear, tinker with it. It's not simpler, but it is more manageable and easier to understand, and a lot less all over the place to get the build that you want to build. And with the way they updated the drops, you're not consistently drowning in junk anymore. And when you finally find that gear piece or that weapon that you've been looking for, everything finally comes together. And that is the most satisfying feeling in the world, to know that you grinded and put in that work to make a build that truly makes you feel not only like a Division agent, but a badass. I don't know, I love the new gear system. I love how it works. It took time adjusting to all the changes after coming in and out and being gone for so long, but I honestly say that it is in a really good place right now. And right now, with the new DLC coming out, they've tried to incentivize players to come back or new players to join by making exotics and top-of-the-line gear easier to get than ever before. But yeah, if you're like me and you left, there are actual changes if you've been gone a while. New seasons, new exotics, new endgame activities that I haven't seen before. But what really stood out to me wasn't the new content. It was how much better the game and the AI feels. Loadouts are faster to manage, the UI is smoother, it's just easier to get into than it was at launch. Especially if you don't have a lot of time to invest in the game. Even the community is still here, like I said. I jumped into the mission and 4 people joined me, and I honestly didn't expect the team to fill up. I thought I would get maybe 1 person. I didn't expect to get all 4. So it was an amazing surprise to see that not only is this game still active, but it's active with the veterans that have supported the game since launch. It didn't feel empty. Of course, it's not as active as it was upon launch, and maybe the DLC will bring people back. It's quiet, but still very much alive. You know, the main reason why I wanted to make this video is something that I didn't expect to feel coming back to the game. And again, like I said in the beginning, it's that it's better now. And it's not better in a huge or flashy way. They didn't dramatically overhaul anything, but they fine-tuned and tweaked every single system to not only make it better, but to make it more efficient and easier to use. And that's rare, because most games don't tweak this much after launch. And we're not just 1 or 2 years after launch. We're more than 5 years post-launch of The Division 2. And they're still tweaking and fine-tuning systems to make the experience better for the veterans and new players alike. And that right there gets respect from me, without a doubt. So if you're like me and you did like this game before, but you left because of reasons that pushed you away, the game probably is going to be a lot more easier and more enjoyable now. But if you're not like me and you've never played the game before, then I suggest you pick it up and give it a shot, because it is definitely worth your time if you like any kind of shooter or any kind of looter game at all. This is probably the most polished version of The Division 2 that you'll ever get, and it's the best state the game has ever been in my opinion. Now, I'm not a real PvP player, so I won't really go over too much about PvP in the Dark Zone. It's just not my thing. But I will say this, upon entering the Dark Zone in Division 1, it was epic. It sounded like you were entering an area that was deadly, that was threatening, and I just don't see much of a point of entering the Dark Zone in this game, because anything I can get in the Dark Zone, I can get outside of the Dark Zone. Now, I have an idea on how you can make the Dark Zone more appealing and make people want to enter it and make it purposeful. And I'm not going to talk about that here because it's probably going to need its own video. And if you do want to see me talk about that, I'll make another video about that. All you got to do is let me know in the comments below that you'd like to hear my idea on how to improve the Dark Zone, because I think it's simple but actually really good, and I would love to discuss it. You know, I don't know how long I'll stay this time around. It could be a week, it could be longer, but the Division 2 pulled me back in, and I'm at least going to try the DLC coming out. I'm going to buy and try the DLC, and I have been yes, no about buying the season pass. I haven't yet. I'm level 80 in the season. I think I'm like 83 or 84. That's neither here nor there. I still might buy it. If I do, I would get everything that I've unlocked up to the point anyway, so I'm not really losing anything if I don't buy it, other than all the stuff that I already don't have. But this is the kind of game that I think you should try if at all you like shooters, you like looters, you like looter shooters. Like, I feel like the Division 2 is just so underrepresented in today's gaming world, and it just doesn't get the credit and the praise that it deserves, in my opinion. And it's just gotten so much better, and the love and the support and the devotion from Massive and the teams working on this game deserve more appreciation. Anyway guys, that's it for this video. Thank you for watching. If you've been thinking about jumping back into Division 2 but you're unsure, feel free to let me know in the comments below. Ask me any questions you have. I might be able to answer them. I might be able to give you that little nudge you need to go ahead and play the game. Or if you haven't played the game yet, buy the game. I'm sure it's on a deep sale considering how old the game is. Anyways, hopefully I'll see you next time. Hippo out.